my name's Laura. Welcome to my channel. And I decided to make this video today on sleep. And I'm going to touch on a few things about sleep. I'm going to start off by saying that a lot of people in our society today don't get enough sleep. And when they do get sleep, a lot of times it's not good enough sleep because the quality of the sleep is not as good. And a lot of the things that we're doing in the world today with our cell phones and being busy all the time and staying up late, and I've spoken to quite a few people that have told me that it's pretty much regular. I mean, even elderly people that I talk to, besides a couple of people, younger people that I've had conversations with who stay on Instagram at 1 o'clock in the morning, and then they have to be up at at least 6 o'clock in the morning, and they're getting about 4 hours of sleep. And I know that a lot of times people have said that raw vegans don't need as much sleep, and I think that that's kind of true in a sense, but I'm going to touch on a few of those things in a moment. But it's so important to make sure that you're getting the quality of sleep that you really need. And a lot of times, the way I feel, and I think I talked about this in another video before, is that when people are raw vegans, we do tend to have a lot more energy all the time, and we have enzymes running through our body. And a lot of times I feel we don't know how tired we are, because I know for me, I could do a lot more than I used to before I got on a raw vegan lifestyle. But at the same time, sometimes I think that I burn myself out because of the fact that I do have so much more energy, or I did do that in the past. I have overcome some of that stuff and learned some strategies to try to get more rest. And it's one thing to get rest, and then it's another thing to get sleep. And I think it's very important that before you go to sleep that you wind down. And a lot of times people think winding down is something that they need to do with their cell phone. And the unfortunate thing about that is that those blue lights have things in it that cause us to stay more awake. So we don't need to be on our phones, and according to research, we're not supposed to use the blue lights for at least an hour and a half before bed, which really takes a lot of strategy to figuring out when the best time is to do all of your emailing and all of your social media and everything that you need to do in enough time to wind down, whether you have to have a cup of tea or what it takes to wind down. But that wind down is really important. And I know for me, I like to read, and a lot of times I will read from a book so that I'm not reading off of my phone. And besides the fact that when you're reading a book, you're a lot more focused in the book as opposed to being focused into the interruptions that you get on social media. And then the next thing, you're doing this and you're doing that, and then you're all over the place, and then you look at the time and it's late. And is social media really worth losing your sleep over? I don't really think that it is. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what things in the body can happen when you don't get enough sleep. So when we don't get enough sleep, what starts to happen is we start to get cranky, and the reason we start getting cranky is because we're not getting enough sleep. And not getting enough sleep, our cortisol levels start to rise, and the melatonin drops, and we start really feeling lousy. And even if we don't feel like we're tired, like sometimes you can feel like you're not tired, but something is going on where you're just not feeling like you can handle things. And that's what a lot of that stuff has to do with, is the drop of these different levels. And It can cause you to have so much anxiety that you don't realize why you're having anxiety. People go for anxiety to see the doctor for anxiety, and they end up getting prescription for pills for anxiety, prescription for pills to sleep, prescription for pills for acne and things that are happening in our bodies. And actually, there is a correlation between acne and not getting enough sleep. So is there a such thing as beauty sleep, or is this a fairy tale that we heard from the time we were kids about, oh, I'm going to miss my beauty sleep or sleeping beauty or what have you? This is really a proven study that people who don't get enough sleep age a lot faster. So if people want to spend all this money on creams and potions and running to the doctors, getting shot up with all these different things, this is something that they may want to hear, is that sleeping is the most important thing to anti-aging. Eating is one too, but I think that sleeping is the most important thing, because this is when our body is rejuvenating. This is when all of your cells and everything in your body is trying to repair. And it is also when we are getting moisture into our skin. This is when we retain our moisture. And if we don't get enough sleep, our skin gets dry. And who wants dry skin? When the skin is dry, it shows off every little line, and even the tiniest crease will look even worse. Whereas when the skin has more moisture, it seems to look more lifelike and have more vitality. And the reason for this is because the sleep that we're getting, and people will tell you to have a nighttime regimen, putting on all these lotions and everything, which I really do believe in, and I've done a video on this. But when you're sleeping at night, that is when all these potions and magical things are happening, is during the time we're sleeping. So if you're only sleeping 4 or 5 hours and it's not quality sleep, it's not really going to help to rejuvenate your skin and your cells. So this is something that's just so important. And another thing that I always stress, and this is number one with me, that my husband knows, I do not eat at least 3 hours, and this is at the very least before bed. Now, I will have a cup of tea with a little honey or something that's easily digested, but food that's harder to digest, if you're going to spend the first 4 or 5 hours of your sleep digesting, how are you going to get good quality sleep? And this is why you need to really focus on not eating before bed. And a lot of people, they just don't think about food. In the Western American society that we live in, it is later and later and later. The later the better. Everything that everybody does first is mowing the lawn, doing all these other things that have to be done, and eating is always last. All of a sudden you look at the time and it's 7:30, 8 o'clock, and now what am I going to eat? And then it's 8:30 at night, and then you're going to bed, getting on social media, doing all these things, and it snowballs into a horrible mess. And then people wonder why they're getting sick, why they look bad, why they have these pools under their eyes, why all their wrinkles are showing, and they're just aging terribly. They did a study on this, and the study, they took these people and they showed them what their skin would look like in 20 years if they keep going on their 4 or 5 hours of sleep with their 15-hour-a-day jobs, or whatever it is, whether you're raising children, a single mom, or whether you are somebody who's married and you have a husband and you have to cook supper or not cook, as we know it as raw vegans. Any of these things take time and planning. And so all of these things add up in time. You know, A lot of these things we take for granted and we don't think about and we don't practice. These are things that take practice. It's a practice to try to figure out strategies. You have to look at the time. You have to look at your clock. You have to stay focused on a clock, which I've got one right behind me. You have to look at it in the day and realize what time it is, and realize that if I don't start my meal, preparing for my meal at this time, what time am I going to eat supper, and what time am I planning on going to bed? And if you really think about all of these things, you'll realize that there's not enough time to do all these other things and eat supper. So why not eat supper first and then go mow the lawn, and then you will at least be able to get rid of some of that and have time to fast for a while. But people don't think that way. I've watched people and I noticed that eating is the very last thing that people think about at the end of the day. They want to do everything first. They don't pay attention to what time it is, and then all of a sudden it's late. And people may say, well, why is she talking about food? This is about sleep. Sleep to me has everything to do with food, and food has to do with sleep. These things are daily habits that we have to start realizing what's more important in order to be able to get this good quality sleep and have a good quality of life. So what time should people be going to bed at night? Well, the truth is that we should be asleep by 10 p.m. So if you're not asleep by 10 p.m., you're not going to release the hormones and the things that you need to get good quality sleep. So it's between 10 and 2 that those hormones are released. So I would say that if you're not in bed at least maybe 30 minutes before that, you're not going to get to sleep by 10 o'clock, because sometimes you need to lay there and sometimes you need to read a book, which is a really good thing to do, to read an actual book and not be laying in bed looking at the cell phone, which was a habit that I had for a while. And I looked at something and I started reading something one time and found out how bad it actually is, and started really thinking about the interrupted sleep that you're getting from looking at blue lights. So not only are you looking at blue lights, but there's things on social media in different places that you might go on the computer that you may not really want to be looking at before bed to get good quality sleep. So there's a lot of different reasons why you wouldn't want to have your cell phone an hour and a half before bed, or at least an hour. Shoot for an hour and a half, and then maybe you'll leave it alone in an hour. So another thing that I'm a firm believer in is grounding. Some people call it grounding, and some people call it earthing, and some people think it's a mad hippie idea. But there have been proven studies, and there's been a lot of studies on this, and I did quite a bit of reading about this before I decided to do some things to start grounding. And in the studies, they found that even just grounding for 5 minutes a day does amazing things to our cells in our body, and that our cells in our body are also connected to what kind of quality sleep we get, and it also can help with arthritis. It can help with numerous things. There's been lots of studies on this as far as anti-aging and things of that nature. So what I started doing is I started walking barefoot outside at least once in the day. And they say that even for 5 minutes a day, not to think that you're not getting enough grounding and think, well, I can't do it because I'm only going to get 5 minutes, because they say 30 minutes is really good. But they say that even if you do it 5 minutes, putting your hands into some soil, walking barefoot in the grass, things of that nature can really do a lot to help us with arthritis, with depression, because this has something to do with the cells in the body. And when we really think about it, we spend so much time during the day hours on the telephone, doing things on social media, all this sort of fake stuff. We need to get more into nature and start doing these things and putting these habits into our life to help us to ground to the earth, to have better quality sleep. And I really believe that this has helped me an awful lot, is doing a lot more grounding. So another thing that I do to ground is I have a grounding sheet, and I will just show you this sheet. This is the part that you stick this little piece into, and it snaps in, and then the other part of it goes into your outlet, and you have to leave it on the ground in order for it to actually help ground you. And then I have this is a weighted blanket that I use, and this is also something to help you with grounding. And I have noticed that since I've been doing this, my sleep has been so much better. This can help you with so many different things, from depression to acne to more beautiful skin, everything in that nature. So, you know, you've got to think to yourself, the cells in the body is what's important. And me being a raw vegan, and we're trying to put all these live enzymes in our body, why wouldn't we want to sleep and get grounded and feel better and get better quality sleep? It's like food for the body, food for the skin, food for life. So another important thing is to have the room completely dark. And some people like to use those blackout curtains. Now, I live out in the woods and it's pretty darn dark out here, but I also have a skylight in the bathroom, which does, if the moon is out, it can make it a little bit lighter in the room. So one thing that some people like to do, and I have done, is use a mask. This is an eye mask, and this is an old one. It's not a real good one. I actually ordered a better eye mask, and this eye mask that I ordered also is made of copper, so the copper can help with some anti-aging benefits. I would really suggest for people to look into different eye masks. There's hundreds of them out there, and some of them are better with blocking out light. Some of them have anti-aging benefits along with it. And this is another thing, along with beauty sleep and all of this stuff that we've seen from years ago, and you would see people putting these things on their eyes, but they're actually truth to this, that the darker it is, the better quality of sleep that we get. So I think all in all, what's important is to practice these things in our daily life, and maybe start cutting out a little bit more of the social media and getting more into nature, grounding, and reading from an actual book, and not always looking at the phone, and making sure that we plan our meals and different things, that we can really get closer to the better quality sleep that we need. It's never always going to be perfect, but these are things that I practice all the time, and I do pretty well, but I've been doing these practices for a while. They may take time for some people, and a lot of times you'll notice habits that you're doing, picking up your phone late. That was one of my worst ones, was the phone situation, because as it gets later in the day and you're doing all these things, the last end of the day, it always seems that it's relaxing to sit and look at the phone, but it's actually not relaxing. It's actually hyping our bodies up to look at the phone. So even if we are tired and we think we fall asleep, we're not necessarily getting the best beauty sleep that we possibly can. So why not let all of these beauty products and all of these things that we're using really seep into our skin and get good quality sleep and feel good when we wake up in the morning? Why have to run to the doctors and get these injections and all of these things when all we really need to do is to just get some sleep? So I'm just going to close with that. And I'm going to read this, and this is out of Psalms, and this is chapter 127, verse 2, and it says, "It is vain for you to rise up early, to sit up late, to eat the bread of the sorrows, for so he giveth his beloved sleep." So I hope y'all liked this video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and have a wonderful, blessed day.